If you want to save time and still get accurate results, then partner with 4 Pillars Research, proud sponsors of PI Perspectives. We specialize in uncovering insurance policies that can make or break your case. From identifying unknown policies to uncovering accurate policy information, we streamline the process so you can focus on your case. Partner with 4 Pillars Research and unlock the full potential of your investigations. Visit researchfpr.com to learn more.
Looking for an insurance agent that puts you first? Every PI business is different. That's why OREP Insurance can shop multiple markets to ensure you get the best coverage to meet your unique business needs. OREP's model is business by the golden rule, and for over 20 years, they've built their business by putting their clients first. So come enjoy a fast online application and same-day certificates of insurance at OREP.org. OREP has coverage for armed investigators, executive protection, and even has a separate policy for security firms. The application takes less than 5 minutes, so visit OREP.org today. OREP.org. Check out the PI Institute of Education at piinstitute.com. Since 1989, Kelly Riddle has been teaching on subjects such as surveillance, nursing home investigations, insurance fraud, domestic investigations, hidden assets, and accident scene investigations. The PI Institute of Education is a featured learning partner in the Investigator's toolbox.com. So check out the free content on the site, then visit the Institute for more great savings on additional classes. We're proud to announce a partnership with investigatorconference.com. This free site tracks all the live events in the industry. Want to plan out your travel schedule to see what events are happening in the next few months? Are you hosting an event? Send them an email to add the date. Visit the site today. That's investigator-conference.com. Investigator-conference.com. Welcome to the newest episode of PI Perspectives. Today is the results show from the 2025 Investigator Survey presented by Working PI Magazine, PI Institute of Education, and Investigatorstoolbox.com. Matt welcomes Kelly Riddle and Isaac Peck. The guys talk about the results of the year survey that helps get a pulse of the industry. Lots of great data to talk about. Please welcome Kelly Riddle, Isaac Peck, and New York Private Eye, Matt Spaier.
And welcome, everyone, to the next episode of PI Perspectives. Well, it's that time of year. We are talking about the PI survey. I think this is either the second or third annual that we've released here. Kind of the brainchild of Kelly Riddle and Isaac Peck from OREP Insurance. We all kind of got together and said it'd be kind of cool to ask some questions and get the pulse on the industry, just how to see where trends are and talk about things. So obviously they're back and they're on the panel. I want to welcome Kelly and Isaac back to the program. How are you guys?
Hey, Matt, good to see you. Isaac, good seeing you, brother.
Doing great, Matt. Thanks for having me. Nice to see you, Kelly.
Yeah. So Isaac, we'll start with you. If folks don't know who you are and what you do, just tell folks a little bit about yourself.
Yeah, so my name's Isaac. I'm the president of OREP Insurance. We have a specialized program for private investigator liability insurance. And today we serve over 1,000 private investigators across the United States. And I'm also the publisher of Working PI Magazine. So we send the most widely read print magazine to private investigators across the country, 25,000 PIs, and we love bringing kind of the latest news and information to PIs.
Yeah, it's a great resource, man. You have great articles, and really, when you talk about the finger on the pulse of the industry and just writing about things that I want to know about, and we're going to go through some of those things on this survey here because some of the questions were geared towards that of like, what do you want to see, what do you want to know about within the industry. So I thought it was pretty cool that we could address this. So
thank you.
Next up, I don't know if the guy actually needs an introduction, but we're going to give him one anyways. So Kelly Riddle, tell everybody who you are and what you do.
Hey, Matt. Yeah, Kelly Riddle, based in San Antonio, licensed coast to coast. Will have been in business 37 years as of April, and so yeah, I've actually a regular contributor to the Working PI magazine, and been on the PI podcast, PI Perspectives podcast with Matt, numerous times. So it's great to be back with y'all.
Yeah, always a treat to have you on, man. Just digging into the knowledge. And you have the institute also, right? PI Institute.
Yeah, PI Institute of Education, exactly. So yeah, get CE credits out of there for all the PIs.
Mhm. That's great. Okay, so again, I think this is probably the third year, right? Am I right? Is it the third
It
year?
is third year, yeah.
Yeah. Okay. So yeah, we purposely tried to change some of the questions around this year just to kind of get a sense. And we're going to go through. This is kind of like the results show. So we've got about 30 questions that we'll go through and kind of talk about how the answers came through and just comment on some of the things that we're observing. And hopefully, as this year's starting and you're running your business or you're doing this business, you can get a sense of maybe where to market or how to grow and answering those right questions. So I'm going to dive right in and share my screen. So if you're on the YouTube version, you're going to be able to actually follow along. If you're listening online, then you're just going to have to take our word for it. So, okay. So the first question here, pretty simple and obvious, right? Are you in a state that requires licensing? So we've got a 94% of the people that answered this question answered yes. So most states in the U.S. require licensing, correct?
Yeah, absolutely. That was an interesting question. I would be surprised if it wasn't that high. I think Mississippi, Alaska, Colorado now does not require licensing. So, a handful. So that's not surprising.
Yeah. Isaac, how do you handle writing insurance policies for investigators that don't actually have a license in the state? How do you approach that?
So non-licensing states were asking about experience and background, and certainly more cautious about folks that don't have a background in investigations or anything like that, and are in their first year of business, right? We'd be a lot more curious and ask more questions about that if you're in Colorado or Mississippi, for example.
Right. But you actually do write policies though.
Yes, we do.
Okay. And it just on my experience of the folks that I know in states that don't require a license, a lot of them have licenses in other states. I feel like even though they're not required to be licensed in a particular state that they're doing business in, they are license holders in other states. Do you come across that when you're writing those policies, Isaac? Or not really?
Certainly seen that, like at the conferences, PPIAC, for example, some of the investigators in Colorado, they like to put licensed, insured, and bonded on their business cards. So they have to leave Colorado to get a license in another state in order to say that. But yeah, so we see some of that, and in other cases, right, the folks just don't have a license.
Right. And because I am the king of the segue, we're going to go into question number 2. Are you licensed in more than one state? So I did not plan that. It just kind of worked out that way. So 68% of the people who took the survey answered that they are just licensed in one state, and about almost 30% had between 2 and 5 states. I know in my business, I'm licensed now, I think in 3 states. How about Kelly? How about you?
Yeah, I think we're up to almost 30, I think, 30, or slightly over 30. So, yeah, and the interesting topic while we're on that is reciprocity. I mean, a lot of PIs think that they can go set up shop in another state just because, that state has reciprocity, and that's really not what that's designed for. And, we know that it's to follow up a lead, but, you certainly can't go set up shop.
Yeah, and that's a good point. So I actually fielded a phone call this week from the New York State Association, a member. I'm the chairman of that association right now, and they had a question about crossing borders for an investigation, right? So in this particular instance, they had done some due diligence and determined the subject that they were running a surveillance on could potentially be at a girlfriend's address in Connecticut, right? And they're in New York. And he said, "Well, what should I do? Should I do the work? Am I going to get in trouble if I cross the state lines?" Right? And this is always it's a tough, tricky situation, right? I'm not an attorney. I can't give you legal advice, but I can give you an answer based on my conversations with the Department of State. And I think I actually even did an episode on this a long time ago with Brian Willingham. We actually talked for about 40 minutes about this, right? So the long and the short of it is, are you going to go to jail if you cross the line and do the work? Probably not. Does the Department of State like that you do that? No, they're very unhappy that you do that. Is it best practices to team up with somebody in that state? Yes, it is best practices to do that. If you don't have brick and mortar, you're okay. If you're soliciting business in another state that you're not actually licensed in, that's a problem, right? That's my take on it. Kelly, what do you think?
No, I think you're absolutely right, Matt. I mean, and a lot of times, they will give you, like I'm in Texas, right? So Oklahoma, I think will give you up to 30 days, maybe a little less than that, but per year, in which you can just, write into them, email them, whatever, and they'll give you, kind of like a temporary operator's license, not even a license, but a permit. But I think where people get in trouble is, like you said, they'll start marketing and it's really going into competition with licensed investigators in that state, and so. And I don't know, that's probably a question for Isaac, as far as crossing borders, what does the insurance coverage provide into that particular scenario?
Yeah, do you have any input on that, Ozzy?
Yeah, so I mean, generally, for you buy a policy here in the United States, and it's going to cover you, across the United States. But the policy requires you to kind of have the appropriate licenses or to be operating within the bounds of the law, right? So if you were to, in a case where a private investigator is crossing state lines and performing services in a place where they're not licensed. Um, there's certainly an argument that they're operating outside the bounds of the law, and insurance isn't designed to protect you from breaking the law. So I think that there's a gray area there in terms of a claim that might come in against you in a state where you're not licensed and you really should be for the services that you're providing.
Yeah, I think you run into trouble when you develop some sort of intelligence for your case and it gets precluded because you didn't do something properly and the attorney ends up losing the case, right? And
Right.
now they say, well, it's you messed up here. Now I'm going to sue you because I couldn't get that verdict that I wanted. And I can prove to a jury if I had that piece of intel that, the verdict would have been different, right? That's where you start running into problems, I think,
Yeah,
right?
that's a great point.
Yeah. So it's if you're like, I'll give an example here in the tri-state area because I like to keep it local. If you're on the George Washington Bridge, going from New York to New Jersey, and you're following somebody, you don't necessarily have to break off. You didn't know that they were going to go to Jersey at that particular point. There wasn't that pre-intelligence. I would say follow it through. If you need to do additional work in New Jersey later on that particular individual, partner up with somebody who's licensed there just to kind of keep yourself protected. But I wouldn't say you necessarily have to break off from there. And again, I'm not an attorney, consult an attorney about it. It's just my opinion based upon my experience and all that. So, yeah, so that's always a great question to ask, and a great topic to talk about. So let's talk about continuing education. That's something that Kelly had mentioned earlier with the institute that he runs. That is a gold mine. If you are new to the industry, I definitely suggest you check out the PI Institute of Education. It's reasonable. It's great training by not just Kelly. He's partnering up with other individuals like Dean and Karen Beers, and I think Wes Bearden probably did some teaching for you at some point. It's a good thing. So, all right, question 3. Do you operate in a state that requires continuing education? So we've got 59% said, I'm not even going to answer the question. To me, I would say no, they don't. That the answer would be no, they don't require. And then let's see, almost 25% was the 11 to 20 units. Kelly, let's talk about continuing education, why it's important.
Yeah, absolutely. Thanks, Matt. So, it's like everything else. You don't know everything as far as current trends are going, current legislation, those kind of things. I know you and I have sat on the NCISS board, which is the legislative watchdog for our industry. But, there's so much that changes from technology and what you can and cannot do. And aside from that, just learning new skills and new little niche markets that you can get into. I mean, I found myself finding markets, electronic bug sweeps, 18-wheeler and cargo investigations and things of that nature that, nursing home abuse investigations, those are things I fell into. So, you got to get a little training on it before you can even go out and start. And this is a good place to do it, continuing education.
Yeah, I mean, I think you make a good point, right? So even if you're in a state that doesn't require, because I'm in New York and New York doesn't require, um, it's important that you do make the effort to get that education, go to conferences, go online, take courses, just so you stay on top of trends and you understand emerging markets in the investigative field, um, to how you approach to running your business. Isaac, when you were evaluating a policy, do you take into account the continuing education factor or not?
So only about 12 to 15 states require CE. So it's definitely in the minority, and it's almost kind of disproportionate here, right? The that's roughly less than a third or less than 30% of states require CE. So we tend to look more at the experience of the private investigator, and then with a little cautiousness if they're operating in unlicensed states.
Right. Okay, so you talked about experience, and now you're the king of segue because we're going to question 4. How long have you been a private investigator? So, looking at the percentages, I mean, it was pretty much across the board. I was surprised that um, a good amount, almost 19% of the people that answered this question are over 30 years, right? 31 years or more. I was surprised to see that. So I'll read the numbers real quick, right? 1 through 5, 13%, 6 through 10, almost 12%, 11 through 15, a little over 15%, 16 through 20 years, almost 14%. Same with 20 to 25, almost 14, and 26 to 30, almost 14. So it just kind of spread across the board, which is good because we really wanted to get the feedback from people that have been in this for a while or people that are just getting into it. So this, like seeing these numbers, makes me happy that we really, I feel like we got a good sample size of the industry.
Yeah, man, I think, we probably should have had question 9 right behind this one, because question 9 says, are you the owner of the PI company? And, I'm jumping ahead a little bit, but, I think like 91, almost 92% of the people that answered this are the owners of their company. And so therefore, I think that kind of speaks to this same topic, I mean, if you're the owner of the company, typically you're going to have more years of experience, which is showing in the answer to that question 4.
Yeah. I think they say like most private investigators will go out of business like within the first 4 years.
Yeah.
And I think it's 4, may actually even be less than that. But yeah, it's good to see that there's a good amount of people that are still out there that actually took and participated. And obviously talk about it from a liability standpoint, Isaac. How does that experience, someone being in business for longer, affect the math when you're assessing risk liability?
I mean, I think across the board, as you look at professional insurance, folks that are just entering a profession, right, have a lot to learn, and they're more likely to make mistakes. I was really impressed with the response here in terms of, the vast 87% of our survey respondents have more than 5 years of experience. So I'm, I'm, I don't know that that reflects, the profession. It might just reflect the nice folks that complete the survey, right? But it's what an incredibly experienced group of folks in terms of the people who responded to the survey.
Yeah, I definitely I agree, and it was nice to see just the numbers so spread out like that there too. So now we're going to drill down a little more into like different types of investigations. This next question is what percentage of work is desktop investigation? So basically, meaning you're in front of a computer, you're doing research, you're looking for telephone numbers, you're looking for witnesses, you're looking for assets, you're doing stuff like that. So in this one, we've got 40% of the people who answered the survey do more than 50% of their business is desktop investigations. And then less than 50% would be about 29%, and then less than 25 is about 24%. So I think what you're seeing here is that the trend of desktop investigations basically becoming more of what we do. I think that number was less last year. What do you think, Kel?
Yeah, I would agree with that. I mean, obviously with AI coming out and this the trends in general, information is such a hot topic, and so that I think is reflective in this. I mean, that's really what we why clients pay us is to generate information that they can't get any other place, and so that's very reflective.
Yeah, what's interesting is, with the AI and the ability to do research, you've got the firms that are trying to do the work themselves, or the public, hey, I'll just go online and research. And if I can't find anything, then they'll hire the investigator, right? Or, I did some digging and here's what I found so far. Like you get that where they just give you a hodgepodge of information that you then got to sort through. Isaac, talk to me about assessing risk on the desktop portion as opposed to the field investigator who's out and about. What would you say in the industry? Like, would you say there's more risk being out in the field, or more risk being on a desktop?
Yeah.
It's a trick question. Go ahead.
I would say field investigations generally are a little riskier in terms of the litigation and the types of claims that we see against PIs. Not to say that kind of, research and, the even accounting based investigations, that we do see claims around those items as well. And then I actually have last year's survey in front of me. So last year we had, roughly 35% said that they do more than 50% desktop investigations. So we've gone from 35 to 40. So to your point about the kind of increasing desktop investigations.
Yeah, I'm not surprised by that. I think that's where the industry's trending. And with regards to the desktop investigation, um, we'll get to it later because I know there's a question about it. Errors and omission. Let's touch on that real quickly. What is errors and omission? I can't even say it. Coverage, and what does it cover? What does it not cover?
Yeah, errors and omissions stands for E&O insurance, also similarly called E&O insurance. It covers the professional mistakes that you make in your capacity as a private investigator. So if you, fail to report something, if you report something incorrectly, the basically poor judgment, negligence in your professional services, E&O is going to be the insurance that responds and defends against that.
Sure. Okay, so the next question, number 6, was what percentage of work are field investigators? It's basically just asking the same question again in a different way, and answers are pretty much similar. We've got 42% here that say more than 50% are out in the field, so the numbers are pretty much the same on that. So we're not going to beat a dead horse here. We'll move on to the next one. Online case management systems, or do you use one or not? Simple yes or no answer. 32%, or almost 32.5% say yes, and an astounding 67.5% says no. To me, I just don't get it. I don't get it.
Yeah, and I'm like Isaac. I've got last year's survey in front of me, and it hasn't really changed any. It's pretty much almost the exact same. So I mean, I don't know how you cannot. It's just organizes things so much better and gives you information at the tip of your fingertips.
Well, just being able to manage, and you talk about errors and omissions, right? How do you avoid making an error? Well, you stay organized and you have put everything in a place where it's supposed to be, and being able to go back and pull out files. I get it all the time. I get emails daily. Oh, you worked on this 3 years ago. I need some more on it. Or you found this, or your report states this. Can you go and clarify it? Okay, well, let me go look at the case notes so I can have a good answer, instead of like, oh, I got to go to storage, or what Excel file is that in again? Where is it? I don't know. I feel like if you're serious about business growth, you make the investment. It's not super expensive to have a case management system. And it's something that you should build into your pricing anyways. When you're quoting a job, like there should be some sort of, additional charge for, administrative costs, and you're recovering the money that you're laying out for these things, right?
And Matt, a lot of attorneys will call or email you and ask you, hey, before I assign this case to you, I need you to do a conflicts check to make sure that you haven't worked, for either any of the parties involved. And so, it's real easy to do with a case management system, and so, and I know there's several of them out there, Crosstracks, Track Ops, et cetera. So, they just need to shop around and see what's best for them. But not having one is, like you said, not going to allow them to grow as easily.
Yeah, those are the two biggest ones, and they both pretty much do the same thing. It's a matter of comfort level of their dashboard and customer service, who you prefer to deal with. But it's something I think that needs to be in place. All right, moving right along here. Question 8: how many cases do you typically work per month? So the biggest answer on this was between 1 and 10. Almost 50% of the people who took the survey answered that. And then the second one was between 11 and 20, and that was almost 26%. And then as the numbers of cases rise, the answers of people get smaller. So, you're seeing that. I guess the cases that come in maybe might be a little meatier, take a little bit more time to go through to finish up, or maybe somebody is not working full time and they're just taking a lighter caseload. There could be several reasons, right?
Might be larger firms too, right? Taking on the higher caseloads.
Yeah. I don't consider my firm to be a large. I consider us to be like maybe mid-size, but we're constantly turning cases over every day. I'm closer to that minority number of people that have lots of cases, which I have no problem with that. So I'm not going to complain. But it's really, I guess, a choice of the type of investigative work that you do as well. Whether or not you have repeat customers, right? Who's your clientele? Is it a one and done thing, or is it an attorney that's going to give you that repeat business over and over again? I think if you're working with attorneys, like, those numbers are going to be higher, that you're working on more cases. All right, moving on to the next one. Kelly gave this one away earlier. So are you the owner of the PI company you work for? Yeah, almost 92% said yes. So yes, I guess only the people that own things want to answer our questions. So okay, so now we'll segue into the sales team question. This is something that I always find interesting, and I think you reach a point in your career where you decide, okay, and is it time to bring somebody dedicated on, or do I roll myself away from doing the work to actually do more sales? Like, what does that look like? So on this one, this is question 10, almost 60% said they did not have a dedicated sales team. Almost 9% wish they did. 26% said they do everything themselves. and only 5.83% said they did. We'd had a similar question last year, I think, Isaac, on this. Do you have that number handy?
Yeah, let me see if I can find it.
Yeah, I know it probably wasn't question 10 last year on the survey. I started to throw you on the spot.
I have the exact same percentage, 5.83% said
Really?
yes.
Wow. Oh, look at that. That's amazing.
Just
Yeah, Kelly, what's your take on that?
Yeah, I mean, it's hard to have someone else sell your company. I mean, you build it around you and your skills and stuff. But to your point, Matt, at some point you got to step out of the field and concentrate on business growth. And so, that's kind of what I did. The very first case manager that I hired, it meant that I took on more overhead, so I therefore had to replace it, which caused me to go out and do more marketing. So it's kind of a little bit of a circle. One thing begets another. And so, but if you're going to grow the company, somebody's got to be marketing.
Yeah, you'll reach a plateau, that you'll level off on your growth, and clients will come and go, so you got to like go out there and get the next one. You'll
That's right.
just never know. I mean, I've heard so many horror stories. I remember Paul Jabe talking about losing a massive client at one point that pretty much put him out of business. He had to like reinvent himself. And it could happen, right? You don't want to put all your eggs in
Yep.
one basket.
No doubt.
You just don't know. Things happen. People leave jobs. New people come in. They want their own people.
Yep.
Obviously the economy is a factor on that, and how things get done. So
You have stuff like COVID and, law firms that split and, clients that go bankrupt. So yeah, you got to definitely not have all your eggs in one basket.
yeah. All right. So we'll push on. We're going to do one more question here before we take a quick break. But it kind of lines up with the whole sales thing too, right? So the biggest challenge as a business owner, I thought this was just a great piece of data, understanding, as a small business owner in this sector of industry, like what do you find the most challenging? And basically new client solicitation and client retention, right? 36% goes right back to that sales and marketing. Like if you're not good at it, maybe you do hire somebody to go and do it for you. The next answer at almost 28% was balancing work and business management, right? Again, ties in with the sales thing. You can't do everything on your own. Eventually, you will basically come to a plateau. And then the next was other. I don't know, Isaac, were you able to source any of the other responses there?
Yeah, so I've got them up. I mean, we've got a few folks that say, look, I'm just an employee, so this question doesn't apply to me. I think one of the common themes in the other category is finding good contractors and, finding qualified personnel, finding good staff, finding employees, right? So that's obviously a pain point. Some of our respondents said none, so no problems, no challenges. Someone says taxes.
Yeah. Because they have another income.
Competing with non-licensed PIs or independent investigators, finding accurate sources of information online, mostly regarding employment, social media, and open warrants. Data is a couple of responses. Life balance,
Right.
um, feast or famine. I could go on. Dealing with attorneys and big egos.
Yeah. I've never come across that in New York. I don't know what you're talking about.
Exactly.
Yeah, I was surprised that report writing was so low on people's stressors, man. I would think that would be higher. But it's not even 7% of the people said they're stressed out by writing reports. To me, and that's a reflection, the way I see this, time management, right? Having the time to write those reports, writing the report themselves, that's fine. You've done the work, the report's fine. But having the time to write the report is it's a balancing act for sure.
Well, there again, Matt, talking about case management systems, if you write your reports every day, put your notes into a case management system, you hit one button and it generates it into your template with all the notes and stuff. So you just got to pretty it up.
It makes things a lot easier,
Yeah.
definitely for sure. So this is a good spot to take a break. We're pretty much almost a third of the way through everything here, but we're going to tap out, let our sponsors do their thing, and when we come back, we're going to dive right into the survey and keep things moving. So everybody sit tight, and we'll be right back.
Satellite Investigations has launched its new website full of great new content. Matt and his team have released some great informative blogs. Make sure you log in to LinkedIn and follow Satellite Investigations for the latest content. Over the past year, our industry has been the target of foreign governments and agencies that have attempted to recruit unsuspecting investigators to gather intelligence or immediate expatriates. PI Perspectives is teaming up with the Federal Bureau of Investigations to get the word out about this ongoing crisis. If you've been contacted by an individual or company that might seem suspicious, please contact the FBI at tips.fbi.gov. You can also contact the New York field office at 212-384-1000 to report suspicious activity in any state. The link is also in the show notes. Even if you completed a job and it still doesn't sit right with you, you can report this activity. The only way to stop this trend is to work together. So let's do it.
And welcome back to PI Perspectives, the annual PI survey results show. We've got Isaac Peck from OREP with us and Kelly Riddle from Kelmar Global. I want to welcome you guys back to the program.
Thanks, man. Glad to be here.
Yeah. So it's always great talking about these the statistics here. I'm such a numbers nerd. I love this stuff. I love analysis and just looking at things. My kids are constantly rolling their eyes when I get into that, that phase where I'm just crunching numbers. Which is funny is because I sucked at math growing up.
It tells you a lot, though, so you got to.
Yeah. It all changes when it's your business and your thing. It just means a little bit more and hits a little more. So let's jump right back into it. We're at question 12, almost the halfway point of the survey here. What is your yearly level of income from your PI employment? So we've got under $50,000, 34%. Between 51 and 75,000 was about 13%. Between 76 and 100,000, 14%. 101 to 125, 12.3%, and 126 to 150K, 6%. And then 151,000 or more was almost 20.57%. So you're seeing, from what I see here, this data, with the nerd talk here, from what I see is, either you're really successful and you're doing it full time for a living, or maybe this is your, post-employment, doing something on the side, just a little bit to kind of make ends meet, or doing as much work as you want to do and not really kind of pushing things there. That's what I'm seeing here. What's your take on it, Kelly?
Yeah, I think you're right, Matt. I mean, there's the part-timers out there, and there's the guys that are, just kind of getting by, not stressing over it. But I mean, you're talking about almost 60% of the survey respondents, are under 100,000. So there's definitely room for growth there if they want to grow. Big question is, are they marketing? What are they doing to push the envelope a little bit? But yeah, I think these numbers tell quite a lot, and ties right into the purpose of this survey.
Right. Have you gone to the PI Institute of Education to take that sales and marketing course?
That's what I'm talking about.
Yeah, check the show notes. There's links to the site, folks. In all seriousness, if you do have intentions about growing and you're frustrated, you don't know how to do it, or just need a little extra insight on how to do it, any of Kelly's teachings on this stuff, really, it's spot on. What do you think, Isaac? What's your take on seeing this?
Yeah, I'd echo that. I mean, I think some of those folks are likely part-time. right? Or maybe the need to do more sales and marketing.
Yeah. So the next question here is specializing in one type of case. Um, and the choices were criminal, insurance, legal slash attorney, domestic, corporate, NA, or other. So we've got, let's see, 22.5% said none of your business, right? NA. 20% said other, which means that when we were crafting this question, maybe we could have done it a little bit differently. Notes to
Yeah.
self, right? And then the next two are legal attorney or criminal. I think those are the two big new verticals within our industry. And then, the 10 almost 11% insurance investigative resources here. Isaac, from a liability standpoint, when you're writing a policy, like what are the verticals that are like most concerning when you're assessing risk?
I don't think the highest risk categories really kind of fit neatly into these more general categories. We consider like executive protection, for example, to be higher risk, or kind of constable services, those types of things. The canines are high risk, for example.
Yeah, you can't control those dogs, man. They just want
They're
to.
beautiful animals.
Yeah, 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 yep. It's interesting here because I look at the verticals that we have here, and I was surprised that legal attorney wasn't higher.
Yeah.
And the reason that I think it probably should be higher or would be higher is because it's the repeat business, right? The returning clients that have a regular need for you. A criminal investigator is only good when a crime has been committed, or when somebody's got money to pay an investigator. You see
That's
that
right.
a lot. I thought insurance would be a little bit higher also. Um, maybe there's a trend where insurance companies are using more in-house investigators as opposed to third parties. I don't know. I don't really live in that world. That could be the case, but the domestic and corporate stuff, they're all. I like to call those distress purchases, right? They're only going to happen when there's a problem and there's money to throw at that problem, right? What do you think, Kel?
Yeah, and I totally agree with that. In insurance, that's just a steady one, but they're getting real difficult to get onto the vendor panels for insurance companies too. So they've got the quote national companies that are getting most of that work, and then they sub it out. So I think that speaks to the insurance being a little bit less. But I'm with you, Matt. I think that legal. I'm shocked that it's not a lot higher than that.
Yeah. So, all right. So now we're getting into the nitty gritty of the questions. I think maybe some of the newer investigators are curious about, or if you have hit that plateau and you're like, okay, am I billing enough? Am I priced accordingly, properly? It's always like it's a big no on the message boards for the associations, right? You don't talk about rates on the boards; it's not allowed. But it's a serious question. So the first one here, we're talking about: do you bill by the hour or by the job? So overwhelmingly, it was either hourly or both. I think very small by the job of like a flat rate. That's what that would mean, or contingency fee if it's allowed in the state. Only one person responded that they bill on contingencies. I didn't even think that was legal.
Yeah, it's not in most states.
Yeah.
This is almost identical to last year's, as well. I mean, it's almost 100%.
Yeah, yeah, that's interesting. Okay, so do you charge the client an hourly rate of? This is question 15, right? So here's the nitty gritty, right? Here's the question that everybody wants to know: am I charging the right amount? Should I be charging more, or am I charging too much? Right? Why is the phone not ringing? Why did I lose that job? And again, this is spread out by region, right? You got to take that into an account, like what city are they operating out of? And it ties in more down the survey down the line here when we see where the people that took the survey are based out of, and we'll touch on that again when we get to that point. But looking at the data here, it's kind of spread out a bit, where we've got 24% of the people who took the survey are coming in that $76 to $100 an hour number. And then the next would be 21.19% was between 101 and 125. And then, after that, 126 to 150 is about 16.67, 151 to 200, 14%, over 200, 7.34%. And then unknown, you don't know what your bill. That's a little concerning. 4.8%. And or maybe they're an employee. I mean, maybe they don't know what the hourlies are. All joking aside, maybe that's the case. And then 7 people basically said, piss off, I'm not answering your question.
Yeah.
So
I think this ties into the other question we had, though, earlier about what's your level of income?
Mm-hmm.
So
yeah,
I think this kind of speaks directly in unilateral to that.
Yeah, I mean, that's sweet spot, right? For almost 45% of the people who took the survey, between $76 and $125. And again, when you look at the regions of who the people were that took the survey, that would make sense that it went that way, right? Cost of living, obviously, if your clientele is not on the corporate level and it's more on the private sector, how much money can you reasonably expect somebody to pay you to do work? So it's all kind of got to make sense on that. Isaac, you have any input on this, on the hourly?
I like to see, a lot of PIs making over $100 an hour. So
yeah, they got to be able to afford insurance, right?
Charge what you're worth.
Exactly. And right, charge what you're worth. It's good that you're saying that, right? So one of the things that I did very early on in my business that I regret, and I've talked about this before, but I'll say it again. I was afraid to raise my rates for almost 10 years, because I had those repeat clients, and I was afraid that if I started really raising my rates, that I'd lose the business, and I would raise my rates every year, essentially, or every other year, but certain clients I kept locked in. If they gave me a certain amount of business, I didn't want to mess with that. I was afraid that if, I potentially could submarine and stuff, where they started looking at other people. And I feel like I probably missed out on some revenue because I was afraid to take that chance. And then I got to the point where I was like, okay, here's why I'm doing it. Right. And if they called me out on it, I had an explanation for it. Cost of living, right? COLA, it increases, insurance goes up, gas goes up. I mean, just doing business, tolls go up, parking goes up, everything goes up. Kelly, what was your experience like with your hourly and all that?
Yeah, well, I think, this is one of the reasons why I originally came up with the concept of doing this survey, is because, this investigators can take this survey and point to it and, tell clients, look, based on industry survey, I'm charging below. And so that gives you the justification for increasing your rates. But I was very much like you, Matt, because when I first started my business, I was in insurance investigations almost 100%. And now that's only about 20%, 25%. So, you got to know your market, because insurance companies were only going to pay X amount of dollars, But as I got into the corporate world, that's a whole different animal,
Yeah, it changes, and it you've got competition and you've got other things. I mean, the corporate world is an interesting world because I've in the last 4 or 5 years, I've kind of dipped my toes into it, and it can be incredibly frustrating because if you're getting an inquiry, you don't have the job, right? So you're basically got to make a bid for it. There's usually 2 or 3 other companies that you're bidding against, and sometimes you get picked, sometimes you don't. I'm more used to on the personal injury side. Like if I'm getting a phone call or an email, like I'm hired already.
Yeah.
They're hiring me. They're emailing me because they want something. They know what my rates are, and they just need it. Whereas now I got to go pitch, and as an entrepreneur, it's a challenge, man. I love it. I'm
Yeah.
Put me in that room. Let me try and sell you something, right? Um, as a business owner, it's a little scary. So
Yeah.
you don't always close the deal here, but it's part of the business. You got to be able to talk the talk and walk the walk, I guess. So okay, let's push on here. So the next few questions are more along the lines of like we're trying to get a gear on the industry on like what folks want to know more about, um, where they think they're deficient maybe on certain areas in the industry, and from a content point of view, is there something that the school the institute could focus on as far as classes go, or could the magazine put out articles that address certain issues? um as a podcaster, there's certain topics that maybe I can come on and talk about, like that's really really wanting to understand, like, what does the industry want to know about, right? The answer is everything.
Yeah.
So, so almost 71%. Business management, computer research trends, case file reviews, and product and database review. Like that was, the answer on that. I thought it was interesting that the least amount of things that people want to hear about is case file review.
Yeah.
And that's a two-way street, right? So I can understand how you wouldn't want to hear about how somebody solved a particular massive case or whatever, but I feel like there's also education in there too. Like you could learn something by that. So I wouldn't completely poo-poo it. I tend to not like to read the case file review stuff, but that's just my personal. Although there's a great podcast out there. My friend Jerry, the FBI case file reviews. It's a great podcast. Go check it out if you haven't listened to it.
Yeah.
What's your take on it, Isaac? We'll go Isaac first, and then Kelly.
I don't think we've done a lot of stories on case file review.
Yeah.
But the interesting feedback in terms of, what people want to hear about. I'll think about what we can do to cover computer research trends.
Yeah, definitely. That seems to be where it's going. I mean, if you look at the swing of the survey where they're starting to see more and more desktop, like it kind of makes sense, right? Oh, I want to know more about what's out there in the industry, and what is there a database I should have that I don't have, right? Is there a certain search technique online that I'm not doing? I mean, you start talking about Chat GPT and how does the investigator use AI to do work, right? I think that's been a big trend in the last like 2 years. You're seeing a lot of people
Right.
writing up content about that, and different ways to do it, right? So it's like, do you use it to answer a question or to source out intelligence, or do you use it for more quality control and making sure you're putting out a good product, right? So different ways to look at it. How about you, Kel? What do you see here?
Yeah, I think, the second and the fourth question are tied together: computer research trends and product database reviews. I think those are very similar and stuff. And so, you see that on the the chats all the time. People want to know what's the best database to use and everything else. And so I actually did a course on that on PI Institute, and talks about the different databases and stuff. And, they're all very similar. You get a lot of their data from the same sources. So it really comes back to, what do you like? What's the most frequently updated, and those kind of things.
Yeah, and the other thing I would say too is that if you are using some of this research, or you feel like you want to write about it and kind of get the word out, or just be known as a subject matter expert, like submitting an article to the magazine, the Working PI magazine, it's a great way to kind of get your name out there, get your business out there, be known as an industry expert. Um, I always encourage people to write as much as you can, blog about it, wherever you can, talk about it. And if you have enough to put together a course, consider, contacting Kelly and maybe, putting together a teaching on these subject matters. I mean, people always want to know about this stuff, right?
Yeah, no doubt.
Yeah. Okay. Next question, 17. How many licensed PIs are there in your company? More than half, 54%. It's just one person. 26.26% is between 2 and 3. I mean, there you go, right? You've got almost 80% of the industry are one-man bands, right? And then you've got that 4 to 10 at a little over 14%, 11 to 20, 2.5%, 21 to 30 at 1.2%. And then there's Hodson PI.
Yeah.
who's got everybody. So, so it is just, it's an industry of that mom and pop type of company. And I think the bigger companies, they're few and far between. But if you can manage it and you know how to scale up, Justin's a great story. I think Jay Marin's a guy right now who's in that growth period where he's kind of expanding and growing out. I know, Kelly, you've gone up, you've retracted, you've kind of gone up and down and back and forth over the years, right?
Yeah, it's growth is it comes down to how many employees do you want to have, how much do you want to subcontract out, et cetera, which leads us to one of our questions and down the list here, but talking about subcontracting and everything, and so I'm going to hold my comments for that, but this ties into subcontracting for sure.
Yeah, 100%. It's all intolerance. I remember having conversations with Jim Nanos, and he's one of your writers there, Isaac. I know you guys had partnered up, and Jim talks about how he was a bigger business, and that he's like so much happier, pretty much just by himself because he's like, he doesn't have to worry about supporting other people, and he's like, he's very focused on what he's doing, and he's happy with what he's doing, and he doesn't have to worry about all that other stuff. And I talk to people about this stuff all the time. When you have employees, they all have families. Like, there's a responsibility as an owner to like provide the work so the people working for you can earn a living and support their families. Like it spiders out how you affect people, and it's not for everybody. Some people don't want that. They just want to do the work. They don't want to care about anything else. I mean, there's a lot of people that are like that, actually. I remember I had a conversation with somebody, and they were trying to understand like what I do, and they're like, "Oh yeah, I could totally do what you do." I'm like, "Do you actually understand what my day is?" They're like, "No, but I feel like, I feel like I could do it." Okay, walk a mile in my shoes. When I was starting to consider the growth and what I wanted to do, guys like Kelly were people that I was spending time with and talking to, and Mike LaCourte and Wes Bearden, even Jay Marin, Justin Hudson, like talking to these guys and saying, "What does your day look like?" Joe Jones is another one. Like, what do you do for your company? Like, what does your day look like? How are you doing things? And then I find something in the sweet spot there that is similar to what they're doing, but more like what I want to do, and kind of figure that out. Right. That's how we grow.
The downside is that you create an animal that has to be fed, so it's like everything else. The more you grow, the more you got to feed it.
Correct. Okay. Question 18. Do you carry, insurance with your private investigator firm? This was something we had talked about earlier. Happy to see almost 85% do. Shame on the 12.61% that don't. And ask ChatGPT to the 2.52% who don't know what you can reach Isaac. Show notes will have his email and his contact. I'm sure he'd be more than happy to give you a consult. Adam's another great guy with Isaac that could talk to you about that and making sure that you're covered. And all joking aside, those are things that could shut your business. If you don't understand the coverage, and it's not that expensive to work that into your policy. So making sure.
Yeah, it's like playing Russian roulette, man.
Yeah. Okay. So question 19, if you do not carry, insurance, why not? Okay, 18.99% think it's too expensive, 17.72% not required by clients, 7.59% unaware of the benefits, 7.59% haven't had the time to research it, and 48% says other. So, Isaac, I'm going to hand this one over to you because this is your uh, expertise and wheelhouse here. So, what are you seeing on this question?
So I've got the other responses in front of me, and I mean the majority of these other responses say NA, I do carry the insurance. But some of them say, I have no idea what this is. It's expensive. This one individual says I'm an S corp, so seems unnecessary. Covered by law firms and attorneys I work with. Um,
Why would somebody say that it's unnecessary as an S corp? That's a very uneducated answer.
Yeah. Yeah,
I mean, if
that's
anything,
scary.
you're more exposed. Like you understand your business is yourself when you're an S corp. Like, why would you not have it? I don't understand that answer.
Not required. Yeah. I mean, I'm really impressed generally with the percentage of respondents that are carrying insurance. I think that's definitely the this is the professional wing of private investigators. I think on the whole, I'd say if there's 30 to 35,000 PI licensees in the country, maybe only 25 or 30% of them are carrying insurance. And that's, those are the real business owners that are trying to run a professional business and protect themselves, protect their clients, protect their assets.
Sure. Okay. Question 20. Do you currently carry cyber insurance coverage? We've got 65% that says no, I do not have any cyber insurance. 18.8% says yes, a limited amount is included in my professional liability policy. 16.76%, yes, I have a separate insurance policy with broader or higher limits. Why don't you explain cyber insurance coverage and maybe some of the misconceptions about it, Isaac?
Yeah, so this is a new question that we added to the survey. I mean, we're seeing more cyber exposure, more cyber incidents, right? Small businesses are getting hacked or attacked or held ransom. So cyber insurance protects you if someone hacks your files or ransoms your whole IT system. Or, I mean, I'm sure many of you have received emails from your colleagues. Asking you to click on a link, right? Or sending you a file when, the sometimes our friends or colleagues in the professions and the spaces that we serve, their email gets hacked and they send out, viruses to us and to the rest of their partners and vendors. And if you infect all your friends with viruses, there could be liability in that, right? And I mean, just getting hacked and data breaches, right? If you're holding confidential or sensitive information and there's a breach of your system, there's all kinds of problems and expenses associated with that. So, I mean, we're recommending cyber insurance more and more for private investigators.
Yeah, it's definitely becoming more and more of a need. I mean, I see a lot of my attorney clients like getting hacked.
Mm,
I think
yep.
maybe in the last year, maybe 4 or 5 of my clients. You have so many employees clicking on things they shouldn't click on. I'm seeing a lot of pen testing advertise or pen testing procedures going right. So they'll send over a dummy link and they want to see which people in their offices are not paying attention and clicking on things.
Yep.
And then having a conversation with HR like, hey, what are you doing here? So we're seeing a lot of that happening. And it's definitely it's a real thing. It's a real concern. You're dealing with sensitive information. We obviously have access to databases and things that with sensitive information, and we got to make sure that we're protecting that. And if something goes sideways, we want to make sure we're covered with it as well. Again, not a huge lift as far as an expense goes. Something That should be part of every investigator's policy, as far as I'm concerned. It just kind of makes sense.
Ironically, I got an email today from one of the associations stating that 2 of their staff emails had been compromised. Please do not open, links from them. So, I mean, it's just everywhere.
Right.
Yeah, seeing it all the time.
It's just the nature of the business, right? You got to be careful what you click on, or just don't don't click on anything as a rule. Okay, so we're getting towards the finish line here. Do you belong to your state association? Again, this is one that I don't understand how 33, almost 34% of people don't join a state association unless they don't have a state association. Then I'll give them a pass. But yeah, it's something that you have to like it. Why would you not want to be a part of your state association? It's important to get work, to get your name out there, right?
Yeah, but that ties into the next question about international. Do you belong to a national or international PI association? And 45% says yes, they do. So those two tied in, also lead into the next question about. I can't wait to get to this question. I keep bringing it up about subcontract work. But
We are. I jumped ahead to it, go. Question
uh,
23.
Yeah, man. So it's a good place to get work. I mean, that's the whole reason, having done a lot of exit surveys with the different, I belong to 25 associations and stuff. So those surveys tell you something. And, you know, networking is always the number one reason people go to conferences. And so I get a ton of work from other PIs, Matt. I know you do too. And part of that is because we're very prolific out there, going to conferences and stuff. And so, it's a ready-made marketing machine that you need to go anyway for training and continuing education and networking and stuff. So, I mean, why you're not a member of your associations is beyond me,
Yeah, and when it comes to subcontracting, the question 23 was discussing do you offer a discounted rate? I think it's something that you really, you have to consider. There are a couple of subcontractors that I've dealt with, and they'll knock like $5 or $10 off of their hourly rate. I'm like, what are you doing, man? Like, I got no room for margin here. I can't make what I can't. What do you think I'm going to charge my client for it? Like, I got to make something off of it too. Understand that I'm bringing this to the table. Like, you wouldn't have it if I didn't bring it to you. Like, you gotta be sensitive to that stuff. And I try and do that when somebody contacts me for a rate. I give them a discounted rate, and even sometimes that's too much. So I'm gonna be like, "Wow, I didn't." And then my response to them is, "Well, it's New York, pal. Like, do you understand? Like, this is what the hourly rate typically is, and this is what I've reduced it to. You can go back and explain that to your client." I can't even begin to tell you the amount of times I over the years I've gotten calls from like insurance companies that were looking for like a rush surveillance to be done like the same day, and they wanted to pay like $60 an hour. I'm like,
Yeah,
no, it's not gonna happen. Not in New York.
that's education, man. I mean, we as an industry have to do a better job, and using this survey is a perfect tool in which to do that, to increase your rates, to force clients to pay what they should be paying. But at the end of the day, man, we all got to make money. And, I'm like you, Matt. I mean, somebody calls me, we're going to, discount our rates. And it's just a professional courtesy thing to do.
Yeah. And I think the other thing too, and Isaac, you can chime in on this also, that person that you use as a subcontractor, 100% absolutely should have insurance.
Yeah.
If they don't have insurance, don't use them.
Right.
It's really, really important, because if things go sideways here and you want to start looking at like who's responsible for all this and who's gonna have the chair when the music stops, like, you got to make sure that that there's a liability policy. And even like, depending on how much work they're doing for you, workers' compensation, like, you got to make sure they have their own comp insurance. They're doing like regularly a good amount of work for you as a subcontractor. You're skating the line of, is that person an actual employee or are they a subcontractor? You got to make sure that you've got coverages in place. And Isaac, I'm going to hand this off to you, because this is more your bread and butter here.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, not only do you want a copy of their insurance, but you want to have a contract with the folks that you hire to as your subs, right? A lot of PIs just kind of operate on a handshake, right? They call up their buddy or someone in the association, and it's all verbal. But you want to have, a simple agreement in place. With folks that are working for you as independent contractors. And that agreement should have an indemnification clause where they agree to hold you harmless and indemnify you if they make a mistake that ends up coming back to you. So that, if you hire a sub and they go out and they make a mistake, um, that is going to come back on your business. And so you want to have a contract in place with them where there's an indemnification clause, and then you want to have proof of their insurance. And so, sometimes PIs get a little shy about kind of showing proof of insurance to each other, and just saying, what, you should take my word for it. And so, whenever I'm traveling around to the conferences and stuff, right, I say, look, guys, that sharing proof of insurance is an incredibly common practice, kind of across the many different professionals and professional service firms, right? That just showing certificates of insurance and showing proof that you're insured is an incredibly common practice, and we shouldn't be shy about asking for proof of it.
So show me your COD and W-9. Let's go.
Yeah, absolutely. This is business.
Yeah, it is business. And I think the other thing too is pay your subcontractors. Don't
Yeah.
make them wait till you get paid. If somebody completes a job, write them a check, get it out there. If you're a subcontractor, take a card, especially if it's somebody from out of state, or take a retainer. Don't have to now go chase people down to get paid or deal with that all that stuff. And discuss it, lay it all out before you even decide to take the work, and make sure the terms of payment is something that it's agreeable to you before you jump into bed with somebody, right?
Yeah. Yeah.
Um,
Absolutely.
Last thing you want to do is have to get into a legal battle with another investigator over a job. Okay. We are at the finish line here, just about. And this goes back to what I was talking about earlier. What region in the US are you in? And we were talking about the Southeast at almost 27%, and the Southwest at almost 20%. And then you got the Northeast, just a little over 19%. So yeah, those are the bigger markets. Northwest is 11%, North Central 8.86, South Central 5.57, and other 9.7%. So again, I think this was similar last year. I don't know, Isaac, if you have those numbers handy, but I feel like the Southeast and Southwest were really where folks were practicing and doing things, and a little bit in the Northeast you had seen a bump as well. So yeah, that's really where the bread and butter, I think, in this industry, and that goes back to like the hourly that I was talking about earlier, about how much people are charging per hour. Really, is reflective of the market, right? If you're in the Southeast, you're probably not getting $250 an hour. Probably just it doesn't support it, or the Southwest, unless you're a subject matter expert, right?
Yeah, this is very similar to last year's kind of distribution.
I feel like it is, right? Okay. How much do you spend on marketing per month? 59% says they do not have any marketing budget. 28.21% spends between 100 and 499, and the numbers only get smaller as the budget goes up. 2.23% actually spend $5,000 or more. Well, that's a lot. For
That would be me.
yeah. Would you answer it multiple times? How many times did you take the survey?
Yeah, exactly, man. Well, I've written 2 or 3 books on the subject of marketing and growing your business, so it's not surprising. But, at the end of the day, man, I always tell people you got to start with something, set aside a budget of some sort, and just use it wisely. And, because there's so many different ways to market. You know, I've done everything from, side of buses to billboards to, movie theaters, everything, so, and you find your little, what's best for you niche and stuff. But if you don't start at least, on the internet doing SEO and that kind of stuff, man, you're just going to be left out.
Yeah. Well, I can say the 0.84%, which means about 3 people responded between 2,500 and 4,999. I'm one of those 3 people that I can tell you. So,
Good.
you show me yours, I'll show you mine.
There you go.
And it's important. It is like you're reinvesting. So it's like, think of it as like R&D, right? So research and development, right? So you have some money that you're making. What are you doing with that money? You're taking that money and you're reinvesting it back in the business to get more money, essentially. People can't hire you if they don't know who you are.
Yeah, then the mindset too is you go, all right, so whatever. If you pay yourself, if you're charging $100 an hour on an investigation and you take yourself off the street, off of the case to do marketing, you're basically paying $100 an hour to do marketing.
Yeah.
So it's not coming out of your pocket, but essentially you're not making $100. So you got to just adjust your thinking and wrap your mind around marketing.
Yeah, and it really comes down to seeing what works and doesn't work. I know you had mentioned a couple different things that you've tried over the years. I've done the same thing, and I have found my sweet spot of what I think works, and it's been great. It really, really is working, and I'm not going to tell you what it is. No, I mean, if you follow me and you listen to my podcast, you'll know exactly what I'm talking about. So that's just my way of getting you to go back and consume older content. Okay, so do you have an outside marketing agency that you use for marketing your business? 41.41%. I handle all my marketing in-house. 43.10% do not actively market their business. So either they're doing it for themselves, they don't do it, and 6.2% use a marketing agency. Well, I'm one of that 6.2%. I definitely have an outside person that does it. He does an amazing job. He's actually working with a bunch of other investigation companies, which has been my pleasure to share that resource with people. And I know they're very happy with what the guy's doing. And I laugh when I see content that looks very similar to mine with different branding on it. So it's cool. I mean, it's again, go back, watch my episode with Adrian Padaroth, and you'll understand. Adrian's a good dude. Shout out to Adrian. Okay, so do you accept cash? Do you accept payments like from mobile apps like Zelle, Venmo, Cash App, or PayPal? Again, trends. These are things that are changing in the industry. 33.43%. Yes, I regularly accept payments through mobile apps. 32.59% says occasionally, depending on the client. 8.9% say no, but I'm considering, and 25% say no, and I do not plan on accepting mobile app payments. Again, depending on the market that you're in, I like those payments because you get them quickly. Zelle, Venmo, they want to avoid those credit card processing fees, the ACH payments, the things like that, right? Giving your clients other opportunities on a way to pay you faster, makes sense. It's good stuff. If you're a bigger business, it's important. But we're definitely seeing the trend of like online banking continuing to grow and push. All right, and the last few questions are with regards to Bitcoin. Do you now, or do you anticipate accepting cryptocurrency payments? We've got 72% people say no, 13% are unsure, and 12% are considering it in the future. I don't think I would. I would do Bitcoin.
Yeah,
not for me.
I'm in Bitcoin, but I still wouldn't take it as a payment for my business. Just my preference.
Although if I did that like 10 years ago, I'd be really happy right now.
Yeah.
Go figure.
Yeah.
I don't know. Yeah. So actually, the survey was 28. I thought it was 30 because I had 30 pages here, but I forgot there were some editing things here that we went through. So So that's it. That is the survey. Isaac, do you want to put a cherry on top and kind of give your thoughts on what you saw from the survey this past year?
Yeah, so I mean, we're gonna put the survey up on workingpimag.com if anyone wants to go back and reference it. And we're actually gonna have we'll have the 20 we'll have the survey from last year as well as this survey if anybody wants to compare the data and see how the industry is changing. And we're super grateful for the folks that submitted it, and looking forward to doing it again next year, right? So we can kind of track how the profession is evolving and growing. And to your point earlier, if anyone wants to submit an article to Working PI, we're always looking for good articles. It's a great way to position yourself as an expert in your field, and kind of share your knowledge with your fellow investigators. And then, if you want a second opinion, or you're interested in learning about E&O insurance or liability insurance for investigators, give us a call at OREP.
Great. How about you, Kelly? Final parting words here?
Yeah, man. Well, it's always good to hang out with you guys, and I think the survey is a outstanding way of helping our industry. Those people, like Matt said, that needs continuing education or just some additional training outside of your associations, the PI Institute of Education, and my PI company, Kelmar Global. Man, we're always willing to help other PIs, and we will provide a discounted sub rate.
Yeah. And I'll just take a minute here too to plug Investigator's Toolbox. Something that I've had since 2019, with over close to 750 members now. Other investigators, basically an online community for continuing education. We've partnered up with both the PI Institute and OREP and Working PI Magazine to give some discounts and benefits to membership and all that. So thank you guys for dedicating your efforts here to putting the survey together and kind of crunching through it. And I think it's important, to continue to take a look at the industry. I want to thank the folks that actually did the survey. We hope that when we do it again for the next one, that just as many, if not more, will participate in it and really help us to get an idea of trends and what's going on in the industry. So thank you guys for making yourselves available and coming on and chatting about it. Thank you everyone for tuning in, and we'll catch everyone next time on the next show. Take care, everyone.
Wow, that was a lot of data to crunch, and we went into overtime a bit. If you hung in to the end, you are a trooper. Thanks to 4 Pillars and OREP for sponsoring the show. Additional thanks to PI Institute of Education for sponsoring our podcast. Also, don't forget about investigatorstoolbox.com, where you can type in Perspectives 50 to save $50 when you join. Please also follow Matt and Satellite Investigations on LinkedIn. If you have a question or a comment about the show, email Matt at matthews@satellitepi.com. You can also find him on LinkedIn, Instagram, and Facebook. We'd like your feedback to bring you the best shows possible, and we'll be back next week with a new show, so make sure you tune in and stay safe out there.